Now, the Israeli defence minister has told the military to prepare an enforcement plan against Iran. Israel Katz said the plan includes maintaining Israel's air superiority and preventing nuclear advancement. It comes after Iran and Israel agreed to a ceasefire. Let's speak now to Ambassador John Bolton, former National Security Advisor to Donald Trump and US Ambassador to the UN. Good evening to you, Ambassador.
Good evening. Glad to be with you.
Well, let's get you to comment first on this story this afternoon, that plan that we just referred to there, Israel Katz, talking about maintaining Israel's air superiority and preventing nuclear advancement. What's going on here, do you think?
Well, I think it's just a very sensible thing to do. I think Trump made a mistake in creating this ceasefire shortly after the American strikes on some of the key nuclear facilities. There was no possible way to know what the total impact of the combination of Israel and the U.S.'s efforts had been. We had achieved air superiority. Time was on our side. I think we should have let it play out longer. We need to watch what Iran is doing to see if it's taking steps to reconstitute its nuclear weapons program. And if it does, we should go after them and prevent it from happening.
Right, so you think that Trump ended it all prematurely in a way that may actually have endangered the world then?
Yes, I think the world is in danger as long as the Ayatollahs rule in Tehran. It is fundamental to their ideology that they want not only nuclear weapons, but continued support for international terrorism to achieve their longstanding goals of hegemony in the region and hegemony within Islam. And that threat's not just a threat to Israel, it's a threat to all the rest of us too.
Because of course Israel wanted to effect regime change and get rid of the Ayatollah. In your view, Trump should have backed that? It's a very risky strategy, isn't it?
Well, I think nuclear weapons in the hands of medieval religious fanatics is pretty risky too. And I think the regime is very weak. I think it's weaker than it's been at any point since the Islamic Revolution of 1979. I think the people are dissatisfied for multiple reasons. And I think the demonstration that they've had over the past year and a half, where Iran's terrorist proxies have been pummeled, the Assad regime has fallen, the ballistic missile and nuclear weapons programs are in ashes. Untold billions of dollars spent on all this over decades provided no benefit to the people of Iran whatsoever. That is the basis of real revolution.
I mean, you saw the anger that erupted from the president's mouth when the ceasefire appeared to be sort of crumbling. Do you think that Israel will behave now and do what Trump wants, which is at the moment not to go back into Iran? Or do you think it will actually go in again and try and finish the job?
Well, I think it will do what it needs to do to prevent an existential threat arising from Iran. Trump has been trying to do this, I think, in aid of his campaign to get a Nobel Peace Prize, and he didn't want to see it fall apart. We've got reports in Washington this morning that the Trump administration is thinking of providing billions of dollars worth of assistance to Iran to build a commercial nuclear power network, which is madness, pure and simple. So I think from the perspective of U.S. national interest, this is far from over, because we don't know what the Trump administration will do next week or the week after that.
I mean, it was interesting. Trump lambasted reporters who published leaked intelligence assessment from the Defense Intelligence Agency about the limited impact, more limited than Trump had claimed, impact of these strikes. But the CIN has then sort of rode in more behind Trump, hasn't it? Are you worried about the fact that there could be, a stockpile of maybe 400 kilograms of enriched uranium removed and sort of on the loose, we know not where?
Well, I don't know that any reporter has actually seen this Defense Intelligence Agency assessment to be able to see, let the rest of us evaluate it. We've got reports from people who have seen it, who describe what it says. The Inspector General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi, has said there was really extensive damage at the various nuclear sites, and we'll learn more as time goes on. I don't think the program was completely destroyed, which is why I would not have eliminated the possibility of future military action. And in terms of whether the Iranians got any enriched uranium out of the Fordo site, I believe it's almost certain it would be in the form of uranium hexafluoride, which is a gas, because that's what happens at Fordo. You enrich it from lower levels to higher levels. And, before you can make the uranium hexafluoride gas into a nuclear weapon, you have to turn it back into metal. And then you have to fabricate the pit of a nuclear weapon. And I don't know where they're going to be able to do that, since those targets were also bombed pretty heavily. You can't do it with a hammer in your garage. It's nobody said, I think, that except Trump perhaps, that everything in the nuclear program had been decimated. But it's not an argument against doing something, simply to say that not everything was destroyed.
I know you're not one of Donald Trump's biggest fans these days, but you have to admit, don't you, that he had a pretty triumphant week from the missile strikes, and then, you've seen him lauded at the NATO summit.
Well, I hope it lasts in terms of the NATO summit. It was we got through another NATO summit, and at least he didn't withdraw. But they have a saying in Washington about the weather. They say, if you don't like the weather, wait a minute and it will change. And that's true of Trump too. So NATO's okay this week. Let's check back in a couple of weeks and see how we're doing.
So you're troubled by the fact that the wording on the threat from Russia appears to have been watered down, which may have been to Trump's liking, of course.
Well, I don't know what the inside of that negotiation was, and we don't really at this point yet know what Trump's position is going to be on continued military assistance, including the provision of key intelligence for Ukraine, and that is perhaps the most important factor in knowing whether the Ukrainians can continue to resist the Russian aggression.
But he did make some pretty positive noises in his end of summit press conference about it being more helpful to Ukraine, and he was cooler on Putin than I've heard him recently.
Yeah, but he still thinks Putin is his friend. We'll see. As I say, it's a question of what day of the week, or maybe whether you're talking morning or afternoon, what he'll say.
Yeah. Did you like what you heard from the European nations, though, in terms of getting to 5% of GDP on defence spending? Or did you think that was sort of wishful thinking? There's a lot of creative accounting going on behind the scenes.
Well, NATO did that in 2014 when it set a 2% target, which many nations hadn't met, even given that the target was set because of the first invasion of Ukraine. And it's not 5%, it's really 3.5%. The other 1.5% is infrastructure. That's fine. But in terms of hard military expenditures, it's 3.5%. And by the way, Trump said he wasn't going to have the U.S. go to 5%, which I think is a mistake. So the best day of a commitment in NATO or many other governmental functions is the day the commitment is made. The question is whether people follow through on it. That remains to be seen.
Before you go, we've had this big story today on the US Supreme Court ruling, which Donald Trump himself described as a monumental victory, striking down, as he put it, the excessive use of nationwide injunctions by judges. Are you concerned at the sort of enhancement to the president's power?
Not particularly. Number one, we stumbled through about 150 years of American history, maybe even longer than that, in darkness without these universal injunctions. And somehow we made it through, amazingly. The Biden administration opposed universal injunctions just as vigorously as the Trump administration did. It's a not unexpected perspective from the executive branch. And the court's decision, which I've reviewed only very cursorily, but it leaves a lot of litigation still open. It answers one particular question, but it opens many others. And just so people understand, the court expressly said we are indicating no opinion here on the constitutionality of the underlying executive order on birthright citizenship. So this is a procedural decision. It can have significant effects, but it doesn't say anything about the substantive question that brought the case to the court.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you very much for joining us. Great to have you on, as ever.